Today we're going to talk about how to enforce best practices, storage best practices, using a policy engine. Um, as you all know, what's happening is as cloud native applications become more and more mainstream, there's a huge growth in stateful applications. Stateful applications means applications that require some kind of storage, some kind of database. But because of the dynamic nature of cloud applications, there is a lot of configuration that may be required on demand. Previously, data used to be configured maybe once and then reused, but now with all of the on-demand applications, dynamic workloads which can scale up and down, configuration of data happens, right at just in time, just when the applications are provisioned. And what that also means is there's a lot of possibilities of misconfiguration. When you automate some of this orchestration is done in a declarative manner, which means that if your workloads are not configured correctly, it could lead to a lot of problems. It could lead to issues with data retention. It could lead to data not being encrypted, not being compliant, and all of this leads to the need for some kind of automation around enforcing all of the policies and best practices. In fact, you can see it at Google Next, there's a lot of talk about AI, and a lot of AI applications are really data intensive applications. So this is going to become even more important as we move forward, right? And a lot of the AI applications and workloads are being deployed on cloud native technologies like Kubernetes. So that's where a policy engine like Kyverno comes in. Kyverno is a policy engine that actually uh, sits inside Kubernetes clusters and can enforce all kinds of policies. A policy could be to replicate your data or to encrypt your data, and we'll get into some of those details. But the nice thing about a policy as code approach is it is declarative. It's code. You can you treat it as code. You store it in Git repos. You version control it, and it gives you the ability to validate resources, mutate resources, generate resources, ultimately help you with end-to-end automation and orchestration with the focus on security and compliance. Because in this dynamic environment, security and compliance, is critical, and it cannot be done manually. As an open source project, Kyverno is heavily used. It's got more than 3 billion image pulls or downloads, a lot of contributors and open source users. In fact, some of the most companies in most regulated industries end up using or needing a policy engine. So you can see some of these logos over here, whether it's in banking, financial services, retail, telecom. Some of these are very well recognized uh, enterprises, and the reason they end up leveraging something like Kyverno is because they have very strong requirements. They cannot put any workloads into production unless they are compliant. So uh, with that, let's jump into how Kyverno can be used for storage best practices. So there's several different scenarios. You start with data protection, right? Making sure that anytime you have data, there's backup configured, right? If you don't configure backup, you may end up losing that data. Data retention, having certain time frame for which you want to retain that data, minimum retention periods, and so on, right? Encrypting data at rest. If you don't encrypt, this could potentially, again, if somebody gets access to it, they could end up getting access to sensitive information. And then enforcing compliance, making sure only certain configurations, certain type of compression, and other things are uh, you know implemented for the data. On the left, you see what a policy looks like, and in the next slide, we'll kind of break it down into what this actually means, right? If you're not a programmer, even if you're not hardcore programmer, you can actually, it's low code, it's YAML, very similar to what you would see in declarative environments like Kubernetes. The policy has two pieces, some metadata up here where you can specify like the description and the severity and so on and give it a name. And then the actual rule is the second part where there's a criteria where in this case you say, okay, every storage class that is being configured should have this name, right? Robin should have with this name should have this compression parameters. So this is a policy which checks and enforces that data compression is being used and a particular type of data compression is used. So those are the kind of policies that you can implement with Kyverno. I mean, this is just one example, but there's tons of policies, and not just data related. This could be network related. This could be workload related. There's a lot of security and operational policies. So at Nirmata, when you start using Kyverno and start using policies, if you want to do this at scale, you cannot just do it one at a time, right? One Kubernetes cluster at a time. So what we provide is a product called Nirmata Control Hub, where you can onboard all of your infrastructure, all of your clusters, and manage all the policies and all the different violations from a central place. And we partner and have integrations into various tools, including with Rakuten Cloud, to be able to enforce these kind of policies for storage and other kind of scenarios. So here's a quick glimpse of what Nirmata Control Hub looks like. You can see up here, with some of these policies, you can see the validation errors, which resources actually were violating these policies. And then we also provide remediation to fix these issues. And here, this is where you see the same information, but flipped based on the policy itself, right? You have the the storage class policy, compression policy, and so on. So you can have different views, and then we provide full remediation so that your infrastructure matches or adheres to your compliance requirements. So at this, as part of the partnership with Rakuten, we've announced a complete testing and certification of Kyverno as part of the Rakuten Cloud platform. So let's just summarize and recap why policy-driven storage governance is important. Without policy-based storage or policy-based governance, you end up having risk of data loss, data breaches. It's very hard to do this at scale manually, so automating it makes a lot of sense. Improving compliance and regulatory requirements. Again, with AI and with the explosion of data, there's a lot of requirements, especially if you are in industries like healthcare, financial services, and you need to meet those requirements. This becomes very important. Because of automation, it gives you and your development teams a lot of agility, because there's already built-in guardrails, so a lot of agility and operational efficiency, and you get consistent experience across your infrastructure. So there's a lot of these benefits. And in case if you're looking to get started with Kyverno and Nirmata for Rakuten, we have some links, and we'll share some of this presentation later. You can start with a simple, Kyverno being open source. You can start with a pilot project and then integrate into a broader, centralized policy management solution like Nirmata Control Hub.